Вперед.
Ну да. С майонезом.
Понимаешь? Да, я долгий, короче, да. Ой, да ведь у меня нет таких предсказаний сейчас. Спасибо за замечание. Вот это вот надо играть, понимаешь? Да, да, понимаю, да. Ладно. Только игра просто же, да. Да, с ней чтобы играл все это, да, понимаете, надо. Да. Вот это она сама играет сюда. Вот это хитрона. Да, да. Да, да. Ну, круто. Нет, больно же. Вот наоборот. Ладно. Что ты? Что ты вообще?
From everybody else, and what we do is the aging for 3 years of this whole process. There's a lot of people who are Tabasco fans, or love Tabasco, they have no idea the pepper sauce is.
Now we've filled a bunch of barrels, and we're gonna put the lid on and get them ready for aging. All right.
So this is its natural state. All this is ground Tabasco pepper that they've picked with salt added to it. It doesn't take much. It is spicy. It's very fresh, like grassy notes to it.
Yeah.
Like a fresh chili.
Definitely get some grass. So could you explain the reasoning for the salt lid that goes on here?
So the salt that you're seeing here is not actually touch and mash at all. So there's a lid here. Obviously, there's salt on top. So maybe if there's a small imperfection in that lid that we don't see, that salt jams itself in there and acts as a seal. Cool. And it's an extra protect layer.
Now the barrels are sealed and sent to the aging warehouse for over 3 years. I can't stress this enough. All of the world's future Tabasco is in this room.
There's about 55,000 in here of these barrels.
Jesus. This is all the future Tabasco.
All the future Tabasco, and each barrel makes approximately 10,000 2-ounce bottles of Tabasco.
Oh God.
So there's a lot in here. It is. You can kind of look down that one and.
What? So you kind of like the cobwebs a little bit?
Yes, it's a natural way of keeping the insects down.
This is so crazy because the barrels are like a living entity, and obviously it would be so much easier to just put everything in a giant bin, like a controlled plastic or stainless bin. It's just such a human stage of this process. Now I got the chance to see what the 3-year-old mash tasted like after spending all that time in the warehouse. Right here we have 3 years from now, we're time traveling.
Correct.
So this is the same? It's
Absolutely.
lost all this, all this water?
Correct. All this moisture. So that's part of the fermentation process. You have evaporation and things like that.
Does it lose some of the spice?
No.
You almost get like a miso vibe.
Mhm.
You get that fermentation.
Right.
It's not just straight salt. It's one cohesive unit now. It's not just a bunch of Lone Rangers in a barrel over
That's
there.
it.
So this is the blending department. This is where we take the 3-year-old age mash and we make it in Tabasco red pepper sauce.
The 3-year-old mash then makes its way into the mixing room, where it's combined with vinegar at a measure of 70-30 and mixed for approximately 3 weeks. Is this hot sauce heaven?
Hot sauce heaven right there. I call it Sauceville.
Sauceville.
Yeah.
Are you the mayor?
Sauceville, Louisiana. I'm the mayor. Come see me anytime. These are my vinegar tanks. So I get about 2 truckloads of vinegar every day. 12,000 gallons go really, really fast.
Okay, so this is the 3-year-old mash.
Yeah, this is 3-year-old age mash ready to go.
From here what happens is the 3-year-old mash gets sucked into one of those machines and then mixed with vinegar.
To the mixing tank.
Gotcha. One of the ways Tabasco keeps the product consistent is by blending all of the peppers from the different countries together in each batch.
We use 12 barrels, a mixture of different countries together. Like I might put 3 to 4 countries together. So that's how we get the 96 barrels every day. We use every day.
The nose in here is quite pungent. It smells like you get a little bit of the hot sauce, but it's just a lot of vinegar. How's it? You get used to it?
Oh yeah, you get used to it. I mean, after years of working over here, you get used to the smell, and I don't smell anything.
Even when you walk in first thing in the morning?
First thing in the morning,
You think it smells like everything else?
Smell like go time to me.
From the storage tanks down there, they get pumped up into here.
And constantly stirred, 14 to 28 days. So this is the mash, the 12 barrels of mash, vinegar all mixed together.
So from here, it gets strained.
Every tank you're gonna get out like anywhere from 1,000 to 1,500 pounds of seed.
Okay.
Pepper pulp, you're gonna get about 30 to 40 pounds of pepper pulp.
And then after everything comes out, then you get this, which is like finally what we know of as Tabasco.
So it's ready to go. The only thing I got to do here is take a sample to the lab, let them test it for me. They test the salt, the pH, the acidity, the pungency, and they tell me it's good or not. We only make good stuff over here, so it's gonna be good.
So what keeps you interested and excited is making something that is as close as possible to the thing that's been done for 150 years.
Yeah, so doing that, it's tradition for me, and it's when I go in the store, I get to see Tabasco brand pepper sauce on the shelf. You know, I had my hands in making this, and it's known all over the world. So I'm just proud to be a part of it. The tradition that keeps. It seems like it just keeps going and going and going and going. It's nothing. It don't get much better than that. I mean, I like it. I could do it another 40 years. I mean, if I come to your house and you don't have Tabasco brand pepper sauce, it's gonna be a quick visit. And so just make sure you have it on the table, ready to go.
You'll leave a restaurant?
I'll leave a restaurant.
Once the Tabasco sauce is finished and approved, it makes its way to the bottling facility, which is literally next door. Just a reminder that everything Tabasco happens on this island.
So what goes on in there?
So it's really, really pretty simple. The sauce comes down into a filler. You'll see the bottles go around. They get filled. They get labels put on them. They go in a carton, and then they go in a box.
Okay.
Really, really simple, but it's moving really fast, and it's really pretty cool to see how dynamic it is.
Yeah. And how many bottles are you guys getting through a day?
So on a good day,
On a good day.
on a good day, we'll make about 700,000 equivalized units. My great-great-great-grandfather.
You're related.
I'm related.
Ah.
In his lifetime, he made 350,000 bottles. 30 years, 25 years of making Tabasco sauce, he made 350,000 bottles.
Yeah.
That's a shift right there.
Really, the stages of the factory, bottles, filling bottles, closing bottles.
Pretty simple.
But it's pretty cool. And is this factory running?
Ваш одноразовый код. Ваш код 0, 3, 2, 2, 0.
In trying to figure out how Tabasco has gotten so popular over time, I think it's important to look at the consistency. The company is literally run by descendants of the same person that started it, and every single person who works here is obsessed with making the product as
Используйте ваш одноразовый код. Ваш код 1, 4, 8, 5.
Frankly, I tasted too much product and product that I was just eating.
As a reward for all of your hard work, we have a this is a stainless steel spoon. It's sort of like a badge of honor. Like if you, when you walk around the factory, people know that you tried the mash.
Will they let me in the bar?
No, they'll probably arrest you if they get something else. Granddaddy.
Yeah, let's move mountains.
The process for making sauces nowadays has combined everything else. We have to step out of this one. When you look at the flavor profile, it's fairly flat. It really needs to work with something.
Yeah.
And that's what we want. That's the purpose of this.
I gotta say, you know, I've said this before, going through all the stages today and meeting all the people that really care about what goes in here, it changes it a bit for me. I enjoyed that Tabasco bite a little bit more than I usually do.
That's really good to hear. That's what we're here to do.
Thank you so much for having us today.
Thank you for making
Do.
that's it.
I enjoyed that Tabasco bite a little bit more than I usually do.
That's really good to hear. That's what we're here to do.
Thank you so much for having us today.
Thank you for making the trip down and spending the time to learn about us a little bit.
At this point, I think it's safe to say that hot sauces may come and go, but Tabasco has proven that it has staying power.
Сколько шагов вам осталось до цели? Не меньше 1000? Похвально. А чтобы заработать 1000 рублей, нужно всего 2 шага. Оформляйте бесплатную мультикарту ВТБ Виза и совершайте первую покупку. Получите 1000 рублей на счет. ВТБ, все получится.
На часах ваше время. Время удивляться чудесам великих эпох. Время увидеть бесценное своими глазами. Время восхищаться прекрасным. Время, когда дух захватывает. Время прочесть Достоевского совсем по-новому. Время идти за мечтой и сделать шаг навстречу будущему. Уже 30 лет Samsung поддерживает культурные и образовательные проекты в России. Узнайте больше.
Perfect feather feathers are key to a good badminton shuttlecock. 16 of them to be exact. Craftspeople in India's Jadubaria village have been making these birdies by hand for generations. The area used to be filled with over 500 small factories, like Dodo shuttles. But foreign competition and growing demand for synthetic shuttlecocks have forced many to close, and scores of workers have left to find higher-paying jobs. We visited West Bengal to see how India's shuttlecock capital is still standing. All of Dodo's shuttlecocks are made with white duck feathers. Workers like Israel Malik wash them in small bunches in soapy water. Usually he works in the final stages of production, but today he's on washing duty. He and his co-worker scrub by the handful for several seconds. It can take workers up to an hour to get through a batch this size. Local duck meat farmers sell these feathers in bulk to the factory. Next, they rinse the bunches in water and set them aside to drip off. Israel fills his buckets with fresh water for a second rinse. He keeps one clean and dilutes a small amount of natural indigo dye in the other. This gives the feathers a very subtle tint that keeps them from yellowing. Working swiftly in tandem, they rinse, dye, and wring out handfuls at a time. Then they spread them out to dry in the sun for 3 to 4 hours. The clean and dry feathers go inside to be sorted and trimmed. This is co-owner Subodh Niyogi's favorite part of the whole process.
Selection के ऊपर एक तो सतर्कता, durability, flight, सब कुछ मेंटेन होता है सिलेक्शन के ऊपर. घर में खाना खाएगा और चावल रहेगा तो जो कुछ दे के खाना पड़ेगा, लेकिन चावल नहीं रहेगा खाएगा क्या? ऐसा हो.
A worker inspects each feather, looking for strength and uniformity. If one isn't up to standard, it gets discarded. Then he trims them to exactly 3 inches long. His shears are bolted together to ensure there's no variation in length. Next, a team of workers start to shape them. They take just a few seconds to cut out a curved edge on one side and a straight edge on the other. The cutters are so practiced that they don't even require a guide to churn through hundreds of identically trimmed feathers a day.
हम जो काम करते हैं हमारे पास में इजी होता है, वो जो काम करता है उसके पास इजी होता है, इजी जिसका जो काम उसके पास में उसका इजी.
Even though the Niyogis are proud to use only Indian feathers, they do import these cork bases from China. A worker drills 16 holes into each base with the only machine used at the factory. But it isn't fully automated. Someone still has to guide it into place with a steady hand and a good eye. Precision like this is also key when it comes to gluing the feathers into the base. With just a quick dab of glue, a worker aligns each feather so it overlaps with the next, occasionally checking that they're all even. And then another binds them together with thread. This forms what's called the skirt of a shuttlecock.
ये नैनो थ्रेड से होता है. नैनो थ्रेड से इसको बाइंडिंग किया जाता है ज़्यादा स्ट्रॉन्ग बनाने के लिए और ड्यूरेबिलिटी बढ़ाने के लिए.
He knots around each feather shaft, making 2 separate rings of thread. But for an added bit of security, a worker also applies a thin coat of epoxy to the base and threads with a paintbrush. Then it's time for the finishing touches, like a label that indicates the speed of the shuttlecock, and of course, the Dodo brand. One important aspect of Israel's job is to weigh each one before packaging.
ऐसे होता है वेट, अगर वो थोड़ा वेट ज़्यादा बढ़ाना है तो ऐसे करके वेट बढ़ाते हैं.
Once they're at 70 grams, he stacks 10 of them in a tube and prepares them for sale across India. Depending on the quality, Dodo sells each tube for 200 to 300 rupees, or about $3 to $4. Production here is often done in stages, but from start to finish, a single shuttlecock takes just 30 minutes to make.
আমার হাতে ভালো ভালো মানে মেশিনে ফিনিশিং হাতের মতো ফিনিশিং মতো হবে না, বাইরের মালের মতো মেশিনের মতো ফিনিশ হবে না. এটা দেখতে ভালো লাগে, সুন্দর.
Че такое вообще?
যেন একটা লোক নিতে গেলে খুব পছন্দ হয়, মাঠে সুন্দর.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Piano TV. So today's episode is for people who don't like classical music, or who want to like classical music but have no idea where to begin. So since you're watching this video, it's my assumption that you at least have like some sort of basic appreciation for classical music, otherwise why bother? So what we're going to do is we are going to look at 6 problems and complaints I hear pretty often about classical music, and we are going to try to solve those problems with music. So I've made a playlist on Spotify with a lot more songs, but we are going to go through 6 of those specific tunes I picked out that I think maybe you would like, even if you don't really dig classical music otherwise. This video was basically born because I've had a lot of students over the years who have told me just like point blank, I don't like classical music. I've heard that a lot of times. They just want to learn pop music, they want to learn music that means something to them, and classical music doesn't necessarily feel relevant. It kind of feels stuffy and academic to a lot of students, so I want to kind of get past some of that. We're going to like skip over all the Mozart and Haydn and stuff like that. We're going to get into like more the gritty or emotional music that I dug up. So let's get started. So problem number 1, I hear this all the time, classical music is boring. Technically not true if you define boring as, lacking substance, because classical music is generally really complex, more complex than music we listen to, but that's not what you mean. You mean, when you say that classical music is boring, that it doesn't catch your attention. It kind of sounds the same. There's nothing in it that like grabs you. There's nothing that hits you in the feels. You haven't heard a classical song that's like made you jam out. The solution is to listen to some non-complex, immediately catchy and attention-grabbing classical music. So if you think about it, classical music we're using is a broad term that encompasses like 400 years of music. There has to be something in there that you could jam out to, that could be catchy, that could grab you. So first of all, we gotta like do some mind opening here. So the song I picked out for you today might be one that you've heard before. It's not super famous. It is the 3rd movement of Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata. Now, all of us know the 1st movement, right? It's that really slow, melancholic, droning song. But not a lot of people know the 3rd movement, which is like really fast, engaging, it's not too long, there's a lot of repetition, so you can get it stuck in your head, and it's just like overall really awesome tune. So let's listen to that one first. Problem number 2, classical music doesn't have soul. So when we jam out to a Jimi Hendrix guitar solo, or we're like listening to Taylor Swift Tapper boy troubles, we get it. We can instantly connect to it. It's not like we have to spend any effort trying to get it, because the music speaks directly to us. And part of the way it does that is by keeping things pretty simple. Pop music is generally pretty basic, and by using lyrics, which obviously instrumental music doesn't have. So a common complaint of classical music is that it doesn't have the emotional connection with the listener that pop music has. It doesn't have the immediacy. You have to work for it. You don't just, get to listen to it and like immediately latch onto it. One way I like to think of this is that we tend to connect most with music of our time. So, for example, my parents might just like totally feel that 80s music, but I will never have that same connection to an 80s song that my parents do. Or like my granny might have this like love ballad from the 50s that makes her cry, but like I'll think it's a good song, but I won't really feel anything from it. So for music to really like get us, it kind of has to feel like it is of our time. So the solution is to listen to emotional classical music pieces. Even though classical music just can't be timely, it can't be generational, most of it is pretty old, we can still hear it in fresh ways. So for example, you probably watch movies where there's like piano background music or something like that, or maybe a character's playing piano, and because of that, it sounds fresh. Part of that is because it's in like a modern movie, but another part of that is a lot of classical music is simple enough in that it has just a melody and chords, that it has a timeless quality to it. So you want to look for emotional, timeless style pieces. So the one I'm going to show you that I think exemplifies that is by Edward Grieg, and it's one of his lyric pieces, Opus 47. It's the third one. It's called Melody. It's very sad. It's really good. And just in general, you should listen to Grieg's lyric pieces if you're looking for something to get into, because they're short, they're accessible, they have like catchy titles. They're good. Number 3, classical music concerts are not exciting. So for most of us who are used to the sweaty, loud concerts that we go to, like pop and rock concerts and stuff like that, classical music concerts are like entirely different. You're expected to dress up fancy, you're expected to be quiet and polite and just like sit back and listen, whereas at a rock concert or something, it's exactly the opposite. Everyone's screaming, you're expected to be obnoxious and jump around. So a lot of people just kind of have reservations about going to classical concerts or don't necessarily enjoy them because they're so different. So have you ever listened to a band's recording and thought like, okay, this is okay, but it's not great, and then you go see that band live and you're like, what? And then they're your favorite band because your mind was blown? That is the power of live music, and most of us have experienced this. So if you never see classical music live, you're not giving yourself the opportunity to fall in love with it in the same way. I mean, some of my best life experiences have been at concerts. Like, it isn't just listening to music, it is a life experience. So the solution to that is to just understand that pop performances and classical performances are apples and oranges. They're completely different experiences, and if you expect one to be like the other, of course you're going to be disappointed. But if you keep an open mind about it, you kind of have an idea of what to expect, you can maybe find that you even enjoy the experience. I mean, I like going to concerts because you get to dress fancy, it's like you get to play dress up, and you get to like go on your own little mental journey, which can be really fun. So the music that I really want to show you, but I can't because of copyright, is a Shostakovich symphony. So this is his second movement from his 8th symphony. It's so metal. It gives me goosebumps. It makes me feel like I'm like hyperventilating. It is so good. It's so stressful. If you're into that. But I think Shostakovich is a good one for people who don't normally go to concerts to go to, because his music is a little bit more modern, and it's like so gnarly a lot of the time, really politically driven too, so it's got a lot of angst. So the example I'm actually going to show you today is Ravel's String Quartet in F major. Now this one doesn't have like the same hair-raising quality about it, but String quartets are a little bit more approachable as a concert because they're smaller, they're a little more intimate, they're not like quite so hoity-toity. So, I mean, you can go to a string quartet and try that out first. Plus, it's a really cool song.
Слушай-ка, ты посмотри просто.
Problem number 4, classical music is too complicated. Okay, I get this one. When people tell me they listen to classical music to relax, I kind of like have to double take. I mean, unless you're listening to really mellow Debussy or something like that. For the most part, like I cannot imagine relaxing to, say, a Beethoven symphony. So yes, a lot of classical music is complicated. It's meant to be complicated. I mean, how often in pop music are you getting 15-minute songs with like multiple parts and like I'm not talking about Rush or Tool or anything like that, or like crazy metal music. Like it's not that common. So because classical music is so complicated, it is so far removed from what we're used to listening to, which is generally a little bit more simple. So it can be hard to like because of that. So the solution is to listen to simpler classical music. I mean, that's a no-brainer. But it's actually kind of hard to find classical music that is simple because a lot of it isn't. One thing that you can do is stick to pieces that have 1 to 4 instruments. Otherwise, generally the more instruments you get, the more convoluted it is and the more complicated it becomes. So if you stick to things that are just like piano only, or piano with another instrument like say cello, like a more expressive instrument, you're going to get something that sounds a little bit more modern just by default. So the example I'm going to show you today is by Isaac Albeniz. And it is not an easy song. It is very complicated to play, but it doesn't sound complicated. It doesn't make your ears go like, doesn't make your ears freak out when you're listening to it. It picks a mood and it just kind of envelops you in it. So this piece is called Asturias. It is from the suite Española. And yeah, just really groovy. I like it. This was originally written for the piano, but we're going to listen to the guitar version because it's so good on guitar. We've already touched on problem number 5, which is that classical music is too long, and that can be very true. The average sonata is like 20 minutes long, an average symphony can be 40 minutes long, so yep, that's true. Classical music can get really, really lengthy. Here's another no-brainer solution, just listen to shorter pieces. Again, you have to seek them out though, so what I would say, avoid symphonies, avoid sonatas, string quartets, concertos, any of those big beasts that tend to be like 20 plus minutes long. So instead, seek out some of the shorter pieces. A good example would be a piece with a title like a prelude, or a nocturne, or those little one-off pieces. We're going to listen to a prelude. It is George Gershwin's Prelude Number 1. This is very short. It's usually about a minute and a half. And the version that I put on Spotify is a little different than the one I'm going to show you, but this is very fun. The thing I like about George Gershwin is that he has like this interesting hybrid jazz classical style that I find is super approachable if you're like a little bit into jazz. music doesn't have a consistent melody that you can grab onto. So in pop music, if you hear a song once or twice, you can generally like sing along pretty well, or you like get the tune in your head. And that's really common in probably music since forever, because if you think about folk music, the kind of music that like, well, you know, peasants and stuff have been singing across history, it's generally just vocals only, or vocals with a little bit of background instrumentation, which isn't too far removed from pop music. Whereas classical music, it started in the church and it moved into rich people's houses, and these rich people had a lot of time on their hands, so they could devote this time to studying music and, you know, making music really complex and intricate, and that is just something that the common person couldn't do. I mean, classical music was not for the common person. Not to mention that a lot of classical music is purely instrumental, and because of that, because it doesn't have lyrics or a singing melody, it isn't immediately as catchy. Sometimes it is, but not always. So my solution to that is to listen to some duos. So what I'm talking about here is something where you have like a background instrument, so a piano, or something like it, and then a main melody instrument, like say a cello or a violin, or something that takes the melody line. Because that is very similar to pop music. You have your background part, and then you have your main part. And it's way more approachable than opera. Or you can just listen to music with one instrument, because a lot of one instrument pieces are a little bit more simple, and they often can have really, I'm thinking specifically piano music right now, they can have like really clear melodies over a bass line of chords. So I'm going to put some examples on the playlist by Grieg and Liszt and Chopin, but the piece I want to show you right now is by Debussy, and it's called Reverie. And to me, this is like a piece that feels like it could be on a movie. It's really ambient. It's a little bit sad, and it's got a really distinctive tune. That is all for today's video. Be sure to visit the little description bar below, and then you can find the link to the blog post on Piano TV, and that's where I've linked up the Spotify playlist, which has all the songs we talked about, as well as some other ones that I thought would be good examples for someone who's just starting to get into classical music, or who might not know where to begin. As always, thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. Send it a like if you were into this.
Returning to work! With ClickUp, our calendars have never been more in sync. Now our project timelines, meetings, and work...
Probably a lot of you know the story of the two salesmen who went down to Africa in the 1900s. They were sent down to find if there was any opportunity for selling shoes, and they wrote telegrams back to Manchester.
So I want you to know we have not rehearsed anything here. Okay, this is all going to be new. The orchestra actually has no idea what Ben's going to do. In fact, Ben doesn't know what he's going to do because he's going to ask you what to do. So a couple of things. I would like from the audience a key that Ben can work in. Whoa, that's not easy. I think I heard an A minor in there. Okay, A minor. Now, can somebody give me a tempo? Do you want to hear a ballad or do you want to hear something more upbeat? It's pretty universal. Okay, now, does anybody have a program booklet that has an interesting sentence in it? And because I can't decipher 50 sentences coming at once, I'm going to have some volunteers from the front here call out a sentence to me that's interesting. I'm sorry, one more time? These new spaces are all designed to be flexible. Yes, yes. So Ben is going to improvise in A minor, an upbeat song on these new places are designed to be flexible.
has to be something completely new, right? Okay. A minor. To be flexible, these new spaces are all designed to be flexible, 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 flexible. Okay, let's see. Okay, so now let's go up. Cellos. Let's try. Arco, go bum bum. Yeah, and then just one on the second one. Bum 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 bum. Great. Now let's move that down. Then the same thing. We can go to F. So that's the A minor. That's with a 9 on it. So bum 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 bum. And that's an F, concert F, C, G, bum 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 bum. 2 there. Bum 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 bum. And then a low C. E. So the whole cycle is. Okay, great. Now let's see. One size fits all sort of thing for the winds, reeds. Let's just take like flutes, oboes, and bassoon, clarinets, and this can be in whatever octave spread you want. And where you go. No. Let's just make it a harmony where you go. I'm taking that back, just clarinets. 2 clarinets go E, concert E, and G. Go. Let me hear that and make sure I don't suck. That's it. You can let me hear that with the cellos for a moment. 3, 4. Okay, so when we go to the E, we're going to do that. So the first one is, sorry, this takes a second to create a whole song for you. And I'm going to take something back about the cellos. Let's just do that one cycle on each one. Bum, 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 then F. Bum, 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 bum. And then in the clarinets. Yeah, so let's try that. 2, 3, 4. last one on the cycle, go. So move that G up. Anyone has a G, move it up to G sharp. Okay, great. And now, okay, violins, first violins, let's go A. And then the second violins go so you'll go E, E, B. So you're going let's hear it all together. Make sure it's not crazy. 2, 3, 4. Okay, great. Thank you. Now, I'll give the violas a little timing shizzle here. Just go 1. Great, perfect. And then double basses, you know what you must do. Let's start from the top. Now, if there's anyone who would like a drum set, you know what to do. Then I'd say, you know, if there's a trumpet player that wants to take a solo after the first chorus when I run out of ideas, then you can just take that there. Okay. So let's, and then you can bring anyone in and out that you want to, but I think I'm probably almost over my time. Well, I had to write a song in 10 minutes, so let's just start at 2 or close to it. Served as a living memorial to President Kennedy by bringing the unparalleled diversity to our arts, our nation's capital, and serving a critical role as a leading provider of the arts education initiatives across the USA and around the world. These new spaces are all designed to be flexible. These new spaces are all designed Let's milk it, make it a little bit louder now. Mezzo forte.